So I've noticed a bit of a trend recently. After doing some research in both the secondhand markets as well as what you can buy new, it seems that almost all home security systems are pretty much the same. You get some cameras to place around your home, the ability to monitor them over Wi-Fi or cellular, and the ability to save what those cameras record. What struck me as odd was that none of this is very special. You can tune into your computer wirelessly through a bunch of free softwares, Parsec, AMD Link, and NVIDIA game streaming. You can record multiple camera angles with OBS and other camera apps. So why couldn't you build your own home security system? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. Using just the ingredients you see before me, including any old computer, this just happens to be a slimmed down one, as well as some way to interface with that computer, a webcam, or in this case two, of similar-ish models, they just have to be 720p and 30 frames per second capable, as well as, if it's an older computer, definitely an SSD, and we'll get into why later. Welcome to Tech Hacks. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have some old webcams. These Microsoft Cinema cams I picked up for about $3.50 from a thrift store. There's only one in front of me, but we will be using two for today's experiment. The next thing that you'll want, as I said, is to have an older computer, but make sure it's something that already runs reasonably well. You can pick up good enough computers at places like State Surplus or other second-hand stores. And if they only have a hard drive in them, you'll want to make sure to replace that with an SSD, and we'll go over how in a minute. First things first, plug your USB cameras into your computer to make sure that they work, and more importantly that they are bright enough. If you're using these in an apartment like I am, you can't guarantee that your hallway lights will be bright enough to capture somebody in full detail. Secondly, you'll want to find where you are going to mount. Will you stop? Secondly, you'll want to find where you're going to mount these cameras. Now, I have found a pretty decent, harmless way to semi-permanently mount cameras to walls. All you need to do is take a piece of large masking tape, such as painter's tape, put it on the area you'd like to mount the camera, then place some super glue on the camera itself and allow it to dry to the masking tape for 15 to 30 seconds. This will create a bit of residue on the webcam once you go to take it off, but this is more or less going to be the permanent home for these cameras, and I don't expect to get them back in perfect condition once we're done. The process of replacing an existing hard disk with an SSD is pretty straightforward. You open up the computer of your choice. You check where the hard drive is located in the system. You'll be able to find this by looking at wherever the SATA cable from the motherboard is leading to. This will be either a red, black, or blue cable in most systems. And make sure that you have a spare SSD on hand. Now all you need to do is reinstall Windows. This should be a relatively straightforward process. If you have Windows installation media already, then your Windows key will automatically be reactivated once you install it on the new SSD. If you don't have installation media, all you need is an 8GB or larger USB and access to the Windows Media Creation tool, which is hosted on the Microsoft website. So, once you have your cameras mounted and you know that they work, the next thing to do is run USB extenders to wherever your computer is going to be. These extenders are relatively cheap. I happen to have several just lying around my apartment, so I can expect that most people will have at least one or two of these. I am taking advantage of the fact that my microwave nook is right next to my front door, so I can run the cables relatively shortly. Now, the positions that my cameras will be occupying are just outside my front door looking straight down at the welcome area, as well as just inside my front door to capture anybody's face who happens to walk by. Legally speaking, you have to have a minimum of 60 pixels between somebody's pupils in order to be able to use facial recognition in court to identify them. If you intend to use this home security system to actually find and have arrested the people who are trying to break into your home, you will need to make sure you have a camera placed at around eye level that is able to capture a minimum of 60 pixels between that person's pupils. In my case, the camera just outside my door is not going to be high enough resolution to do that, as it's far too high up and pointed downwards. But the second camera is going to be placed just inside the door so that anyone walking through has to show their face to it. Once your cameras are placed where you want them, the next thing that you have to do is set up the I Spy software that we're using for this example. You can also use OBS or any number of other applications. Some people even use NDI tools to allow them to remotely monitor their cameras without sending or saving any actual information. This would save space on a hard drive. In my example though, I very much would like to save and record any footage of people entering or exiting my house. So in the I Spy program, the way to set up cameras is relatively straightforward. You click the Add New Local Device, and then set it up so that the video signal looks good. Then you can make any changes that you want to the camera's behavior in its additional settings. You can set things like where recordings will be stored, how long they will be stored for, whether or not it always records or just records on alerts, whether or not other cameras will be alerted when this camera is active, and what sort of object tracking you want in the frame, whether it be face tracking or object area tracking. With all of this set up, all you need to do now is wait for someone to walk by. Now we'll give two examples of when these security cameras are useful. The first one, I am a mild-mannered delivery person who is just dropping off my latest Amazon package. As you can see, the webcam catches the person as soon as their shadow begins to obscure the frame, and it highlights them as they walk by. Once they leave the package and exit the frame, the recording stops and is saved locally. In the second scenario, we have an apartment robber. As you can see, again, the webcam turns on and creates an alert as soon as somebody enters the field of view. They break into my apartment, open the door, and the second camera is already recording because it's been put on alert by the previous one. Here we get a 720p 30 frame per second recording of the perpetrator's face. This does contain a minimum of 60 pixels between their pupils, which means I could achieve facial recognition from this image. And that's really all there is to it. You can add or subtract as many cameras as you'd like. This software is pretty flexible, and it does require an account for certain features like in-app playback, but those are fairly simple to set up on your own without the provided features from the app. The only addition that I would recommend is having an off-site server where your computer is uploading the saved videos so that you can recover them in the event that someone breaks into your house and takes the computer with which you are recording these pieces of video. Otherwise, that's about it. Please make sure to comment if you have any additional ideas, or if there's something else you'd like to see me cover. And as always, my name is Jabberwocky, and thanks for watching.